So I heard somebody make a comment. They wanted to know like proper fencing for goats. And for beginning people who are just wanting to get into goats and you don't really know what you're doing, you can save yourself a ton of heartaches by having the proper fencing first. Just take a few extra months if you need to make sure you have everything set up, and it'll save you from escapes, injuries, and just a bunch of headaches. So here's a few different types of fencing I have on my property. I actually welded this pipe fencing. This is 1.5-inch galvanized old well pipe that I used, and then I just wired on these 6x6 cattle panels. These are the combo ones, so they have smaller holes on the bottom and bigger 6x6 on up a little bit higher. We use the combo panels along this section of fence because it borders our yard, and I wanted to keep our chickens and small dogs and things out of this area. I also used this particular type of fencing here because when people come over to visit the goats like to come and stand on the fence. People like to reach through and etc. So instead of fighting against the natural habits of goats, build fencing that is suitable to their natural habits. So you'll notice I have this rail here. It's set at about 24 inches off the ground because naturally a goat's going to come over and she's going to say, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And then she's going to stand up on the fence. Now, if that was just a cattle panel there, it would bow and sway and whatnot. But since that rail is there, it really adds security. Also, sometimes in summer I'll put a mineral feeder here or trough I can hook over the fence, and the goats can put their heads through this 6x6 hole to reach through and eat whatever you're going to put on this side of the fence. Big thing with goats is it's wonderful to put food and things on the outside of your pens so that they can't put their feet in it, and it will save you like a ton of heartache. Yeah, show them how you put your head through. So just some tips there for that. For stability, like high traffic areas, you should probably use really solid fencing, either pipe or wood, big heavy wood posts. So let's take a look at some other different types of fencing we have here. Just recently installed these new gates here, which has been amazing. 2 8-foot gates here, so it's a 16-foot total opening. Can back my truck right in here. We use this for unloading hay and things into the barn back there. So when you're building fencing, always think about accessibility also. And then again, on these gates, these are the kind with the smaller squares on the bottom to keep our chickens in, which they're out there somewhere. But anyway, keep the chickens in and keep dogs out and keep baby goats in. So if I could change one thing about my fencing, it would be that I would have hot wire. And I still want to do the hot wire at some point. You can see here, this is my inner perimeter fence now, and this is a 4x4 goat wire from Tractor Supply. It's the red brand. It's a 4x4 square, so even Nigerians, maybe Nigerian kids could get through here, but definitely not a standard size. Even baby goat is not probably going to get through these 4x4 squares. I really like that. It keeps my chickens, adult chickens, from going through the fence here. It also prevents the goats from putting their heads through the fence. So another thing about goats and fencing is if they can put their head through, they're going to push and rip it and damage it. So actually making fencing where they can't get their heads through is more beneficial. But you'll notice the one negative thing about this fence, it's been here for 6 years now, and you can see where they rub on it and push on it, and it's starting to bow out kind of along the bottom there. So if I had hot wire at about 26, 30 inches up off the ground here on those posts, right about that level, that would totally eliminate that issue, and that's what I want to do eventually. However, you will notice my fence posts here on this 4x4 square wire are not set 8 foot apart. They are set at about 5 to 6 feet. So you have to remember, with goats, they are hard on fencing, and the closer you put your posts together, the better and more stable your fence is going to last. Also, like where I pulled my wire tight, I've got these the pipe structure here that I've built. That's what we pulled our wire tight on, and that is set into concrete 3 feet down in the ground. And when we pulled this wire tight, we used a come along, and we really pulled it back tight. The thing about wire fencing, is you really need to get it tight. You need to go excessive on security. Like on this T-post, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wire clips per post. And then set your posts really close together. I believe these are 7-foot T-posts, and they are 3 foot in the ground, because we have sandy soil here, so it depends on your soil. We have sandy soil, so we set them really deep. And then where we have tension areas, we put in more H's there. And then I have another nice gate here. Again, smaller squares on the bottom, bigger squares on the top. Now on this H, because I'm hanging a gate to the right, the gate is hung here. So we actually installed this diagonal bar here for added torsion control and stability on this H. So this H would not be as strong without that middle bar. So you can hang a pretty substantial gate on that. The wider your gate opening, the wider that this needs to be. So if you're gonna have more weight hanging off this edge, you need to make this section bigger. Again, my T-posts are really close, 4x4 wire. And let's take a look at some housing. Before we look at their house, I wanted to show you these panels here. I really like Hog Panels, but the thing with these Hog Panels is you need to put your T-posts very close together. These are set like 5 feet apart over here because I have bucks in here. So, and even still with it so close together, I'm getting some bowing. I'm getting some bowing down there, you see. But I like the panels because goats naturally are going to stand on the panels, like our goat is demonstrating here. And instead of, like I said, instead of fighting the nature of the animal, just find a product that can withstand the animal. So yeah, Hog Panels are great. They do make combo panels that have smaller holes on the bottom, but I have standard size goats, so I don't really mind the 6-inch squares. Here's a basic shelter that I have in my buck pen. This is what I started with when I first got my goats. Let me see if I can get into an angle where the sun's not blaring on us. Anyway, this was built with just, I think it's like 8 by 8, because or 7 by 7, something like that. We didn't have to cut very much on the length of the lumber. These are all 2x6s that are screwed onto 4x4 posts. The roof has a slight slope back. The back of this structure is facing towards the prevailing winds, so we get good shelter that way. And there are some gaps. Here in California, we don't really get a lot of real super cold, but it breaks the wind and gives them shade, but it allows a little bit of ventilation. So, and then here's my roof. It's 2x4s that are laid. So I've got my posts, my 4x4s with a 2x4 across the top, and then 2x4s across the rail here. I wouldn't go any wider than this without a center vertical, because we're starting to get a little bit of a bow on this roof. Not too bad, but this structure is like 6 years old, so this has stood up to pretty good abuse. And then we attach the tin to that roof structure. Remember when you lay your tin that you're going to want to overlap your sheets at least 3 ridges. See if you can see that, to prevent water from seeping down in between. Yeah, I really like this shelter. I need to build a couple more, but you know, it is kind of expensive with the heavy lumber. I don't really wouldn't want to make this with lighter like plywood because it would just get bowed. I mean, these are big bucks in here and they're pretty abusive to it, so I guess it depends on what you're housing. But yeah, anyway, just a basic 3-sided shelter is all you really need. In most climates, obviously, if you live where it's snowy and really Arctic, you could actually probably just add a post in the middle here and block off half of the opening and actually just use that as a little goat house. Because the more enclosed it is, the body heat of the animals will prevent them from getting too cold. So again, here's the view of my goat fencing. I really like that 4x4 square stuff. So anyway, just a few tips. Somebody once said if your fences can hold water, they will hold goats. And I think that is accurate. Goats are really hard on fencing, so just prepare in advance and then you won't have any problems.